welcome to Storyboard. This is Shibani Gharat. It is New Year special episode of Storyboard, and we have compiled a set of interesting conversation we had during the year from the biggest names in the business. First on, we have Sir John Hegarty. Storyboard editor Anand Rangaswamy is in conversation with him about the state of the advertising industry today. In this interesting talk, he spoke about how advertising has changed and how agencies and clients need to adapt to technology. Let's take a look.
Big question. What is your view on the state of advertising in the world today?
Well, that is a very, very big question. So I think that the first thing you have to do is you have to say, you have to talk about the business of advertising and the advertising industry. So I think I answer it in those two ways. I think the business of advertising is in a very bad way. I think clients are increasingly lacking in understanding of how advertising works or how to build brands. I think their understanding of the fundamentals of brand building is in a serious way. And that's a big, big concern. And you can see that with the quality of work that's being produced. The advertising industry should be in a very strong place because we increasingly live in a world where brands are more and more important, and brand building is obviously therefore crucially important. And so therefore, you know, you've got this conundrum. The business is in a terrible state, you know, investment in advertising going down, fees being cut, and yet the advertising industry should be in a powerful place.
Why isn't it so?
Well, because I think our clients, as I've said, I think by and large have a failing of how to actually make the industry work. I mean, you know, you look at, the state of television, and you look at what's happening in television, the most powerful brand building tool ever created, and the quality of work in that medium is going down. As I always say, this isn't my opinion. This is the opinion of the audience when asked, do you think advertising is as good as it used to be? They say no. So you're in a peculiar place, a business that thinks it can improve its product by making it worse. I don't know what industry would ever follow that sort of business practice. So you have a kind of almost a belief that you can build a brand by spending less, that investment isn't needed. I can do it for free digitally, and you know, we've completely confused persuasion and promotion over the last 15 years. I think there's a sort of lack of understanding that brands need to both persuade and to promote. The digital medium is wonderful at promotion, and it's not very good at persuasion.
John, but who's going to sort of bell the cat and discuss this issue and sort of bring it out in the open?
Well, eventually, the falling profits of these brands will make it, you know, force itself into the open as they realise their brands aren't as strong as they used to be, and their shareholders will turn around and say, why are our brand values going down?
But that you're presuming that they will link up falling profits to brand building.
Well, I think if you're investing in a company, the value of that brand is fundamentally important. I mean, fundamentally important. You know, as we always say, when Kraft bought Cadbury's in the UK, they didn't buy Cadbury's because they had some nice factories and it was in a nice part of the country and the machinery was particularly good. They bought Cadbury's because it had tremendous brand values. And unless you go on investing in those, you're not investing in the future of that company.
So who should take the lead in sort of correcting this? Because there's not a problem peculiar to India or England or the US. It's happening across the world.
Well, yeah, I think collectively the industry should be addressing it, but the industry is a very fragmented industry, and you've got those in the industry who believe actually that really I'll build my group by just growing my digital capability and forget about broadcast, forget about persuasion, because actually that's becoming too difficult, and so they're investing more and more in their digital product, which I kind of completely understand, but what they've got to be very careful of is that when you're selling a digital product, increasingly competition in that area will be easier and easier as more and more people get the technology. So you're losing out on the bit that you can really put value in, the bit about persuasion. Persuasion is the hardest thing in the world to do, the hardest thing to get right. Get it right and a brand will take off. I mean, you almost can't talk today without mentioning Apple in terms of a brand that has been brilliantly managed, which, by the way, has virtually built that brand on conventional medium, television, posters, print, conventional advertising. They hardly do any digital work at all. The most valuable brand in the world selling technology. It's a very salutary lesson, I think, for people. But I think there's been also a kind of a suspension of questioning. And I often sit down with clients and I hear them say, we've got to create a kind of a community around our product, and we've got to and you think, you make a marmalade. I don't want to have a conversation with a pot of marmalade. I'm not that interested. I don't have enough time to have a conversation with the people I like. And there's a sort of suspension of reality. And I think that happens. You see that happening all the time, where people suddenly, have drunk the Kool-Aid and they don't know how to question. They don't know how to apply some intellectual arguments to things that are being presented to them. And I think companies are suffering.
Change in technology has also made it difficult for businesses to predict, especially for those who are in the business of forecast using data and numbers, media planning and buying being one of them. Mark Patterson, CEO Group M Asia Pacific, in this conversation with Storyboard editor Anant Rangaswamy, highlights how organizations need to adapt to these changes effectively.
One of the most difficult things to do is predict the business.
Yes.
So how do you deal with this? In the old days, you had a quarterly projection, half-yearly, annual, and then you had a flash monthly report.
Yeah.
So
we still do all of that.
But how much of it makes sense?
Well, I think that it's interesting because the challenge is this, the need to deliver the short term, the now, and the next month, the next quarter. That then, but at the same time, you're having to think about next year and the 3 years and the 5 year. So you have these longer term strategic growth initiatives and plans that always have this tension against the need to deliver today and now. And I guess any business, has those tensions. So it's always, I think, as a leader and a manager, something you grapple with. But I think you're right. It's always been hard to predict the future in our industry. It's getting harder. And, change is a constant. The only thing that I think is certain about change, it's going to be faster, less predictable, and more volatile. So, but I think for lots of us in the industry, that's what keeps us, motivated and inspired and gets us out of bed in the morning to say, let's have another go, because we don't know what's around the corner. It's part of the excitement, but also part of the challenge.
It can be demotivating to many managers when they keep failing, and you fail for no reason of no fault.
Are you saying we're failing?
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people in this business. It's not about about you or about Group M.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. It's a bit of a cliche, but you learn through failure, and it's good to have a culture where you can try new things and learn through mistakes or things that didn't go quite so well. That's something that you have to have as a healthy business. But I think the point about change, I think it's right. It's not for everybody, and we see our business move so fast, and some people find that too challenging, can't keep pace, don't want to keep pace, and it is relentless and it's exhausting. But for some that's exhilarating, for some that is just too much. And I think as a business, one of the challenges we have is identifying those people who thrive on change, and obviously, making it clear to those people who can't keep pace.
Right.
People say to me, "What's the thing that keeps you awake at night?" It's that sort of sense that we can't change quick enough. Right. And as a big organisation, sometimes large organisations can suffer from inertia or bureaucracy or process that might slow you down. So it's a fascinating theme and something we live with every day.
I'll stay with what you're saying. One of the problems we are seeing in India, I don't know what it is in the rest of Asia Pacific, is acute pressure on people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The talent pool is small, and in a way it's shrinking because the demand is growing.
Yeah.
And cost goes up, and you've got a lot of very unhappy people.
No, I think it is a high pressure business, and it's not getting easier. And that we have our values as a company say that we will try and respect and look to respect that work-life balance that we put people under, whether it's leaders or people in different parts of the business or people who've just come into the business. There's pressure top to bottom. It's interesting. I have an app on my phone. We have a course that as a sort of aid for managers to help them with resilience and stress and pressure. So we're trialing an online application that's on my phone now that I downloaded actually this week that our training and development team have put in place that basically is there to try and help relieve some of the tension day to day that managers suffer. So stress is absolutely an apparent factor and something as a company we have to try and tackle. And we see attrition rates increasing. We see it sometimes harder to attract people to our industry because of reputation of the sort of sheer level of work. And it's common in particularly in Asia, particularly in many markets where the sort of work ethic is particularly strong, where there's clear hierarchies and this feeling that there's an agency, and the agency-client relationship is sort of sometimes not as partner-esque as we want it to be. Sometimes it's a bit more supplier. So it does put people under a lot of pressure.
It is time for us to take a short break. When we return, we speak to two of the biggest names in advertising and rivals, Sir Martin Sorrell and Maurice Levy. Along with this on notice board this week, we have an interesting campaign by Johnny Walker.